I usually have a very loud voice, so I'm going to try and not speak loudly on the microphone. How are we doing today? So I always say that a day is wonderful when it starts with somebody bringing a magnifying glass with them, because only fantastic things can happen when you look through a magnifying glass. So what I do pretty much every single day right now is I go out and I look in big mud puddles, I look in swamps. My dad always says if the ground is smushy and oftentimes wet and smells sometimes like dead fish, then that's where I like to be. The other thing that I like to do is take care of some of our reptile friends too. So we brought a couple of them that you can say hi to up here, and then we'll have them back there, and my daughter will be back there to help anyone who wants to say hi as well for here. So who we brought today is we brought Scooter. And Scooter, I know, right? Scooter is, I know, right? I mean, come on now, you just can't not love him. Scooter is a Herman's tortoise, and he is a tortoise that we got because somebody just couldn't really take care of it anymore. Tortoises live quite a long time. These guys don't live as long as some of the big tortoises, but he can live about 30, 40 years or so. We estimate he's probably about 10 right now. He is probably the most active tortoise you will ever see in your life and will do anything for watermelon. So he's named Scooter because one of the things that makes a reptile is they have different scales. And what people don't realize about our turtles and tortoises is that these blocks you see on their shell are scales. And do you think they can ever leave their shell and find another one like a hermit crab? No. Do you know that this is actually part of them? So if you looked inside the shell, you'd see a spine here, you would see ribs, and you would see shoulder blades that are actually attached to this tortoise. So no matter where he goes, he has his home. Does anyone here camp? Have a camper? We do too. So basically wherever you go, you have your home with you. Same thing with the tortoises. Believe it or not, we don't have any tortoises in our area. We only have turtles. And if you ever want to know a simple way to know the difference, look at their toes. So when a tortoise walks, they walk on their tippy toes. So do you see how he's walking on his tippy toes? Yeah? That is called digitigrade. Can you all say that? No. If you ever look at a water turtle coming out of the water, or even our box turtles that people think are tortoises, they walk more on their palms. Plantigrade. So Scooter is going to go back there too, and he is going to eat watermelon. So you guys are going to have a great time watching him eat some watermelon and maybe tossing a piece or two in. We brought plenty of watermelon for him. This guy, which everybody has been looking at and wanting to say hi to. Thanks. Is Noodles. So Noodles is a ball python. So he is a smaller guy. How pretty is he? Yeah? So he has scales too. You can see on his scales. Very, very little scales, whereas he has very, very big scales, right, on his shell, which are called scoots, by the way, on a turtle, hence the name Scooter. Just had to throw that in there. Did you want to see what he felt like? I know you guys did. No? No? Do you think he feels slimy, or do you think he feels smooth? Smooth. You want to see? He feels very smooth. Do you want to try?
Come on, yeah. How often do you get to pet a snake?
I know, right? And when he is flicking his tongue out, do you know what he's doing? smelling. He is smelling the air. They actually have, and these guys, they have these sensors on the sides of their lips, and their tongue brings scent into their mouth and into their nose area so that they can see if there's something that they want to eat. We're obviously far too big for him to eat, so he's just kind of looking around and being curious about what everybody is doing here. And see, Scooter is just going to be his own thing. He is nothing but trouble. He will wander around aimlessly, and he will find some way to flip himself over. So that's kind of what he does. So the wonderful thing about our reptiles is neither one of these reptiles are from this area, but we have such a wonderful variety of reptiles and amphibians in our area. And during the talk, we'll talk about areas where you can find them and things you can do to help our amphibian and reptile population and our populations in general. Hello, everyone. Am I loud enough? Too loud? Fine? Okay. Good. Sometimes I tend to be a little bit loud. I have a long history of speaking and trying to overspeak the animals that I'm speaking about, so it kind of raises your voice a little bit at times. My name is Jenny Erickson. I'm super happy to be here this morning on the cusp of our Earth Day 2024. Earth Day, we often think about as a time to celebrate our Earth, but it's actually a time to reflect and look on how we can help it. There's a lot of things that are going on in our Earth that need some help. So I'm going to kind of back up and talk a little bit about where I started from and how I got to where I am and how that's kind of evolved my way of thinking and way of how I do things. So I started working actually at National Zoo. I hate to say how long ago it was. Maybe 30 years ago. And I worked with some amazing, wonderful animals. I worked with elephants, big cats. Oh, yes, please. Sorry, I didn't know where to slide. So what I've done, just to interject, is I've also created a photo slideshow to kind of go along with everything so that you can see some of the pictures, some of the things that show what is wonderful about the county that we live in, the things that often can go unnoticed. So I worked with such wonderful animals that were endangered and got international recognition. And 30 years ago, basically, we went into other countries, us, British, a variety of more developed countries went into some of the more underdeveloped countries, and we actually set up and established programs to help animals in other countries. But a wonderful shift has occurred in the past probably 15, 20 years, where people have ownership in their own countries of animals that are endangered, animals that need care, animals, habitats that need to be taken care of. We've gone from the days of Louis Leakey sending Diane Fossey up into the Virungas to actual students and researchers in Rwanda going up and actually having ownership and caring for those animals themselves. And it's a fantastic shift. And it's one that I hope will grow, and it continues to be growing, so that the global effort is seemingly coming back to the local effort. If we think about, animals like the giant pandas, not as friendly as you might think, but they are the ambassador for World Wildlife Fund, and how much did that do to help bring that animal into the forefront? And now there's so many programs to help preserve that species. So when we look at our conservation plight, if you will, the idea of think globally and act locally is something that rings very, very true. For what we did and what I did, I worked with animals that we saw great success stories. giant panda. Elephants are no longer on the endangered species list. They're still threatened, but they're not endangered. And then we had some stepbacks. I was part of the original team that did red wolf reintroductions in the Carolinas. That program is not doing so well in the Carolinas because of all the development and the fragmentation of habitat. However, that program, they're going to start looking in the Tennessee area, I believe, maybe even Pennsylvania, to revamp that program, because our red wolves are one of the more endangered species of mammals in the world, and we don't even realize they are kind of in our backyard. So why do we care about nature? Why do we care about our environment? Well, we actually go and seek out places in wildlife, in nature. We go on hikes, we travel, we spend a lot of money going to see wonderful new natural areas. We create parks, we create national parks. And those not only give a sanctuary for our wonderful wildlife, by the way, that's my husband's favorite salamander, the marbled salamander, but it also gives us a wonderful sense of belonging to something greater than us. Being out in nature has shown to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, lower our incidences of depression, lower blood pressure, and it actually is a wonderful form of exercise. So if we look at things from our perspective, we get a lot of benefits out of going into nature. Spadefoot, we'll be talking about them in a minute. Just have to interject because they're my favorite. But if we look at it from the collective respect, we also are looking at a lot of these guys as well. So if we look at our status from a more local standpoint, if you look at it from the broad standpoint, it can be overwhelming. You know, we go to Florida, we have a camper. My husband's family lives in Florida, and we go travel down to Florida. Well, one of the most critically endangered fish species we have in our water right now are dying off in the Florida Keys, the sawfish, which I used to work with, and they don't know why. We travel and we see fracking, no-stop fracking in Florida. You drive up further and you see stop mining the Okefenokee swamp. You come up here and you just start to get overwhelmed because every area has their own fight that they're fighting. And that's true here in Loudoun County and in our Northern Virginia region. I mean, I graduated Valley years ago, and there were 4 high schools in the county. So every time I drive through Loudoun County, it amazes me how much change. Some of it's for the good, some of it is, you know, data centers, that's all I'm gonna say. So when we look at our species and we look at our habitats locally, I am, even though I like to take pictures of pretty birds, spiders, I am an amphibian and reptile person. Amphibians especially are not active during the day so much, so this is early in the morning for me, but you'll see me at 3 o'clock in the morning out in a vernal pool, listening and getting pictures of our local reptiles and amphibians. These are the guys, and this is why I came to this point where I am, is these are the guys that we don't actually really pay a lot of attention to as much. We all love our birds. They're so pretty. They sing. I can identify like 6 species. Every brown bird is the same. And except for birds of prey, I can identify all of those and all their different stages of development. These guys are some that we don't pay as much attention to. And these guys are actually such an important indicator of how our local environments are doing, both our reptiles and our amphibians. So if you indulge me, I will kind of discuss how that goes into the larger picture. As we develop our county, we are actually taking away continuous habitat. If you look at our habitats in Loudoun County, most of it now is edge habitat. We don't have vast tracts of land. We don't have vast tracts of interior woods. Everything is, backed up to a housing development or a highway, and that can lead to a lot of our wildlife loss just by taking away that habitat. And it can cause what's called extirpation, which is localized extinction of species. And that doesn't ring truer than it does with our, especially reptiles, especially turtles in our area, but our amphibians as well. Fragmentation of habitat is another big concern that we don't often pay attention to, that's when you have a nice habitat and we build a road through it. When we build a road through it, well, that box turtle still needs to get from point A to point B. And I always ask the question, when's the last time you saw a box turtle recently? And most people can't remember the last time they saw one. But anyone who's been here 20 years, did you used to see them all the time? Our box turtle populations are declining in front of our eyes, and we don't even realize that's happening. Virginia has a 4-tiered system for animals of concern, 1 being of the greatest concern, and 4 being if the habitat stays stable, the species should be stable in that particular environment. And 5 years ago, box turtles were at a 4, and now they're at a 3. So all the highways and all the transecting ways through Loudoun County are creating a road hazard for our turtle species and our salamanders and our snakes. And why is that? Because the study of reptile and amphibians is called herpetology, and herpetology is actually the study of things that crawl. So back when they were put together, they lumped them all together. Even though they have vast differences anatomically, behaviorally, they clumped them all together. But there is some truism to it, because if I go into the middle of the road and I see a crow, that crow is going to fly away. Or that possum has a fighting chance because they can go a little bit faster. But a marbled salamander or a spotted salamander that's crossing the road, or a box turtle, they don't move very fast. So they're gonna see higher collision rates with our vehicles. One thing we don't think about is poaching. Poaching of turtles is actually a big problem in Virginia. We wouldn't think about it, but 2 of our species of turtles in Loudoun County are some of the 5 top species that are poached in all of Virginia. That would be the box turtle and the wood turtle. So why do I care so much about our reptiles and amphibians when we're talking about our environment? Well, amphibians are extremely susceptible to environmental toxins. Some of our species of amphibians actually respirate through their skin solely. We have species of salamanders that are lungless, and that's how they respirate. So they actually have a lot of anything that's in the soil, anything that's in the mud, anything that's in the water directly absorbs through their skin. Any of our other amphibians have the same type of skin sensitivity. So if we see populations decreasing in certain areas, then we look at the reasons why. Is there a new subdivision that was built and it actually destroyed habitat? Or is there a road built and it fragmented habitat? Or are we looking at some kind of a toxin that is causing fewer and fewer of our amphibian species? They are considered indicator species, and a healthy environment, you don't want to see a lot of fluctuations in your amphibian populations. Our reptiles are also kind of an indicator of how transecting our habitats have become, because a lot of times our snakes will get hit by cars on the road because of the fact, that they will sun themselves on the warm pavement. Our box turtles will cross the road, our wood turtles will cross the road to get to breeding locations. And never relocate wildlife. Just have to point that out. Because they know where they're going. So a little interjection, if you ever see wildlife, or especially our reptiles and amphibians crossing the road, just put them in the direction they were going off the side of the road. They know where they're going. So our local herps, if you look at how many we have in Loudoun County as of today, we're not discovering new species, we're discovering species that we didn't know were in Loudoun County previously. But of our amphibians, we have 15 species total, or 25 species. And 2 of those are species of concern: Jefferson salamander and the eastern spadefoot. Of our lizard species, we have 6, believe it or not, in Loudoun County. None of them are of concern, but most people don't know we have 2 introduced species of lizards in Loudoun County. They are not invasive yet. Invasive means they have to have an economical or environmental impact or do harm to humans. However, they are introduced. They are the Mediterranean gecko and the Italian wall lizard. They've been here for some time, but we had mentioned our climate change, our environment. Our winters are less harsh than they used to be, as I remember when I was a kid, and we're actually able to have animals that have more tolerance to our more moderating climate. Snakes, 16 species of snakes, and 4 of them are of concern. One of my heart species, is the timber rattlesnake. We tend to fear our snakes, and we look at all of our snakes as a potential threat, when actually any of our snakes in Loudoun County do not prey on people or any of our pets because they are not large enough. So any bite that occurs is always a matter of perspective, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Our turtles. Everybody loves a turtle. Everybody loves Scooter. And turtles, we have 7 species of turtles in Loudoun County until I find where the spotted turtles are in Loudoun County, and then we're going to have 8. Of those, 1 is naturalized, introduced many years ago, which is the red-eared slider. That's not native to this area, even though you see them in all of the ponds. But of the 7 species, 4 of them are species of concern, and 1 of them is state threatened. And that was not the case 10, 15, 20 years ago. The state threatened species is our wood turtle. And if you have the opportunity to see a wood turtle, it's a wonderful species, absolutely wonderful guy to look at. There's actually, for the people with the children, and even the young at heart, there's a wonderful nature center outside of Brunswick, the Catoctin Nature Center, and they have 2 wood turtles there that could not be released. So if you ever want to see a wonderful, wonderful turtle, but that is a state-threatened species. So there are a lot of programs in place through the Department of Wildlife Resources, Smithsonian, to monitor those populations, to see if we can do anything to help preserve those populations of turtles. The problem that occurs, especially with our turtles, is they are slow to breed, slow to develop, and slow to reach breeding age. So if you have a local population, just by removing 1 individual, you can actually cause extirpation or extinction of that local population. So being more aware of what is around us and what we can do to help is a huge deal. Jefferson salamander, talk about him. So why does this matter so much to us? Well, we have these indicator species. We have all of our wonderful wildlife, which, by the way, all of these pictures were taken in and around our wetland areas. So those wetland areas include forested swamps, marshlands, streams and rivers, even those are not technically classified as wetlands by the EPA, and my favorite, the vernal pools. Vernal pools are what I call large, glorified puddles that hold water for a short period of time, usually about 3 to 4 months, depending on the amount of precipitation, and they are incredibly important habitats for several of our amphibian species, including the marbled salamander, spotted salamander, our Jefferson salamander, our eastern spadefoot, which I'm about to talk about, our wood frog, and these guys, which actually, believe it or not, is a species of freshwater shrimp. How can you time that better? species of freshwater shrimp, which is called a fairy shrimp, and they only exist in a vernal pool. Vernal pools have no inlet or outlet. They are not filled by stream water, anything like that, no springs. It's purely runoff or melt from snow. They do not have any fish, which is why it's very valuable as a breeding ground for some of our amphibians. And they fill in the winter, so when it's February and it's chilly and it's 11 o'clock at night and it's raining a little bit, I'm out there in the vernal pools because that's when those guys are coming to those vernal pools to breed. We have some wonderful parks around here that have vernal pools. If you've never seen one, Algonquian, just around the corner, fantastic place to go and see vernal pools. Go on a rainy day or a rainy evening, and it's just a wonderful harmony of all of the frogs. All of the life, all of the activity is fantastic in our local parks. So one of the things that happens when we take a patch of land and we put a housing development or we put a data center on it, we don't know what it is that we're taking away. We don't know what was there, and we'll never know what was there. So that little guy is a eastern spadefoot froglet that you see on the screen right there. Eastern spadefoots are an interesting species of primitive frog. Oh, okay. Not a problem, not a problem. I got a couple minutes? Okay. And we didn't know they existed in Loudoun County until 2022. And we found one of those breeding populations at the J.K. Black Oak Sanctuary that Loudoun Wildlife owns. And so we've been able to monitor them ever since. So with all of this, what can you do to help? Well, what we can do to help is we can help defragment the fragmentation. So you can plant native plants in your gardens. You can even use container gardens. We have people who live in apartments and condos that use container gardens, and that will help with some of that fragmentation. You can ask and talk to your HOAs. A lot more HOAs are planting native areas where we can get pollinators and we can get a lot of these guys coming back into these areas. Create a natural backyard pond. If you create a natural backyard pond, we get so many species in our backyard ponds that we did 3 years ago, that we put in 3 years ago. And that's a wonderful, wonderful way to help with that. Remember your leave no trace. So if you go out into the woods, bring everything back with you. Don't leave anything. And if you find something, carry it out with you. A lot of our species are getting tangled up in fishing line and eating plastic because it's left out there. Advocate. Your voice matters. Your voice makes a difference. People listen. Board of Supervisors, stand up and talk, write letters if there's something that's important to you about our environment. And join organizations like Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy. Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy is a volunteer-driven organization. For 20, 30 years now, they have had a purpose of education, advocacy, and citizen science, and they offer so many programs. If you've never looked at the programs that Loudoun Wildlife has, they have a lot of educational programs, a lot of walks, a lot of wildlife walks, and volunteer opportunities. And a couple of organizations like that around the area. So it's not doom and gloom all the way. There's a lot of hope and a lot of things that we can do to go out there and help make our environment a lot more habitable for some of these guys that have been losing some of their habitat. So, you're welcome.